Sinners is a new film from Ryan Coogler that I suppose is easily described as being a dusk till dawn type movie, but this time it's set in the Deep South in the 1930s, 1932 in fact. It follows two brothers, the Smokestack twins. One's called Smoke, one's called Stack. Both are played by Michael B. Jordan, as they come back to their hometown following a 7-year stint in Chicago working for Al Capone. They join up with their cousin, who's a musician, and they want to open up a juke joint, a nightclub, in a old mill which they buy from a white guy at the start of the film. The film has a sort of overriding theme of music being able to both cure and help people, but also links to sin and the devil and bad things, and that carries on through. You get a really well-paced, good film about people just trying to set up their own nightclub for the first half of the film. And then when you get to the music montage video bit, where you see a celebration of ethnic music, and I'm saying ethnic, not just black music, because there's like Chinese people and that mixed into this scene where guy starts playing his guitar, some blues, and then you see initially a funk guitar, and then you see some African music players, then you see some sort of Chinese dancers and that, into a sort of, think of like Elvis by Baz Luhrmann, one of those sort of music things. It's like that, just slap bang in the middle of the film, and it's quite jarring. At that point it then becomes more of a vampire film, where they're stuck in this juke joint and vampires are outside trying to get in. Jack O'Connell is the lead vampire. The film kind of falls apart at that point a little bit, because the vampires aren't necessarily fun, but he tries to inject some sort of humour into the vampires, which kind of feels a little bit grating because the rest of the film is so well written. You get vampires that aren't particularly interesting to look at. I like the look of them. They're just very much teeth and little glowing red eyes with red eye shine, but they never really reaches a crescendo with the vampires, and they sort of paint themselves into a corner where they've got clearly rules established for vampires. So much like Dusk Till Dawn, you get a realization scene where they're all standing around in the barn working out what they know about vampires. They get a little tooling up scene where they get all their stuff together, and then they realise that vampires can't come in unless you invite them in. So in theory, they could just sit in this barn until daylight. But then, of course, the writers go, shit, we paint ourselves into a corner with that one. So they just have to have one of the characters just go nuts and say, come on in. And it's not really a natural phrase for her to have said at that point. They try and build in that she wants her husband and that, and she's angry, but you don't really, it goes from a very sensible lady to hysteria quite quickly, and it don't really feel right. And then sort of attacked by the vampires isn't really much of anything, to be honest, and it just feels a little bit like the horror elements aren't fully developed. It's got lots of gore and blood and things like that, but to be honest, I was just enjoying the 1930s film at the start of them getting a sort of gang together, getting everything put together. And you can see there were scenes that were obviously filmed and that's edited out, because they appear in a montage at the end of them getting the food ready and getting the barn ready, and I'd rather have just seen those in order. It's a good film, I enjoyed it. It's a long film, it's 2 hours 20 minutes long, I think, and it doesn't feel 2 hours 20 minutes long, except when it just lags a little bit when it gets into that first bit of the horror element. And then it does go a little bit tacked on at the end, maybe 5-10 minutes tacked on at the end, where Michael B. Jordan then has to kill a load of clan members. And there's not really much in the way of lead up to that. There's references to it throughout, that the barn has been sold to them by clan members and they're planning on killing them, but it feels underdeveloped and it just feels tacked on, like, yeah, but we're making a film about, you know, black folks in the Delta in the 1930s, got to kill some clan members. It would have been better if the clan were the vampires, or the clan had become part of the vampires, but they didn't do that for some reason. And I know it might seem like the obvious thing to do, but it's totally the move they should have made, and it could have led to some interesting bits with the vampires as well. Totally worth watching, real good experience on the cinema. Makes you want to go listen to some blues music. All the actors are great in it. Don't think anyone's weak in it whatsoever. It's just, like I say, it's just got this sort of really well-paced first half, and then when they get to the turn, the vampire switch, as it were, it just feels a little bit strange. And the one thing that I think they failed on was the vampires just turn up in the film. They're not there necessarily for any real reason. They say they want to get the guitar player, but ultimately the vampires are in the area because they just happen to be in the area. And it would have been better if, particularly in light of what the film starts with and the themes that are in it, if the playing of the music brought forth the vampires, and when someone sort of gets possessed and turns into a vampire in the dance hall or whatever, and that's where they come from, that would have been a better way to introduce them, particularly as you're making up your own mythology with it. So I would have rather had him playing this music and it being sinful or bad intended or whatever, and it invoking the vampires, raising them to come there, and then it becoming a problem. That would have been a more interesting way to deal with it. And the only other thing that a film suffers from, and I say it is a good film, is it's got a cold opening that doesn't need to be there, because it ruins the suspense in the film as to who might make it out at the end. It's got a cold opening where you know who is going to make it out. At least one character is going to make it out at the end of the film, and you don't need it there. We all know what we're coming for when we're watching the film, and there's no need to have this guy turn up bedraggled at the start of the film and then it have one day earlier. Don't need it. You could have just had it start without that scene, and it would have been I think a much better experience, because you don't know who's going to make it out then. That's my view. If you watch Sinners, let me know. I think it's totally worth watching on the cinema. I think it is a kind of film that, with the music and the sound and all of that, it's worth watching. The people in the cinema I went to really enjoyed it. It wasn't a packed cinema at all, but it was just something we wanted to go and watch on a bank holiday. For someone to do, really. And yeah, let me know what you think about it, but totally worth watching. If not on the cinema, then in a quiet room without your phone on and with a decent set of speakers, because there is really good music in it. Although I'd have probably skipped the or edited out the Irish jig section. That it's fine, it just, I wasn't really into the Irish jig. I'd rather have heard more of the blues music, to be honest, but there we are. So thanks for watching.